At the will reading, my parents gave my sister $10 million and told me to earn mine. Grandpa's lawyer stood up and read a secret for me. I heard my mother scream. Austin had a warm September afternoon. As I approached the old ranch house, the porch wind chimes clinked faintly. The same sound that signaled summer afternoon safety became laughter. It felt strange and hollow. I hadn't been here in over a year because I'd been told no one was left to visit. Instead of a hug, a cold voice came through the rusted screen door when the front door creaked open. "You finally showed up?" Grandma spoke with sharp eyes and crossed arms. I froze. Her words hurt more than expected. "Grandma, what's up?" I approached and asked. "I was told you were in a nursing home. You and Grandpa don't—" She interrupted me with a shaking hand. One gesture felt like a slap. "Your grandfather repeatedly called Elena on his deathbed. He kept calling you, his little scientist. But you never answered. You never went." I choked on my breath. "That's false." My voice shook. "Please show me his call number." She hesitated, then entered the house. She returned with a small notepad with worn corners and slightly curled pages. She gave it me. I instantly recognized Grandpa's handwriting, but the page number wasn't mine. Not even close. "It's not my number," I whispered. "I've had it since high school." She frowned. "They said you changed it in college." Her voice grew quieter. "Declared your disinterest, your desire for space? That you shamed us?" "No." My legs got weak, I said, stepping back. Grabbed the porch railing for support. "Grandma, visited home last spring break. I came. Here was Vanessa. She said nobody was home." Grandma paled. "Here we were. We always were." "Elena, you saying—" "What?" "They lied to me." A wave of anger rose in my chest, I said. "I was told you and Grandma were in a Cedar Ridge care facility. They denied visitors due to quarantine, that I should stay away and study." No sound came from her lips. It appeared she had lost her wind. "You refused to see us," they said. She whispered, "that you said you had a new life. We didn't fit in." My sharp, shaky laugh was bitter. "I never said that. They intentionally disconnected us. Grandpa's illness wasn't announced until it was too late. They told me the funeral was today at 1 p.m. I found the church empty." Blinking slowly, she sat on the porch swing like her knees were giving out. She whispered, realizing the funeral was at 9 a.m. "People said you didn't show. You didn't care." Swallowed the lump in my throat. I'd never miss his funeral. Never. He alone believed in me. The porch blurred as tears filled my eyes. I kneeled beside her and buried my face in her lap without thinking. Nobody spoke for a while. The wind whispered through the trees like it carried secrets. "He died," I cried, thinking I didn't care. Grandma gently stroked my hair like she did when I was little, saying, "We now know the truth. Elena, we know." Grandma dried her tears with her sleeve and looked at me with a steadiness I hadn't seen in years. Her eyes still showed sadness, but now they were sharper. Determined, she stood slowly, brushed imaginary dust from her skirt, and entered the house. Unsure of what was next, I followed. Everything was the same except the air in the living room. Now it was heavier. She took the phone from its kitchen wall cradle. Her old rotary phone clicked as she dialed, each number a permanent choice. Over time, her skin had thinned, revealing blue veins beneath the surface. I watched her fingers. She held herself without fragility. Grief had turned into determination. She dialed with trembling fingers, but when she spoke, her voice was firm, like I remembered from childhood. "Betty, it's me," she said flatly. "You, Jacob, and Vanessa must come. Right away." Muffled voice on the other end. Grandma interrupted. "Can't wait. You're expected in an hour." She hung up without saying goodbye. Then she faced me. Her voice was calm, but something was burning as she said, The lawyer was on his way. A grandfather. He left some things to read out loud before everyone. I said nothing. I only nodded, not prepared for what came. Yet, I had nothing to lose. An hour later, the doorbell rang. "Wait in the kitchen until I call," Grandma said, gently touching my shoulder. I read science articles I'd clipped for Grandpa at the small kitchen table where he drank coffee in the morning. Mom's overly cheerful tone, Dad's calculated politeness, Vanessa's bored sigh, silence, and Grandma's clear, cutting voice were audible through the wall. "Sit, everyone. Mr. Cullen reads David's will." That was my signal. I entered the living room. 3 heads snapped at me. Mother's fake smile sunk. My father turned ghostly white. Vanessa opened her lips but said nothing. In their minds, calculations were spinning. Why was I here? Why had Grandma lied about inviting them? The living room was smaller than expected. My grandmother's faded floral sofa, my father's uncomfortably positioned armchair, and the antique coffee table with water rings from decades of iced tea glasses all seemed to shrink in the face of what was about to unfold. Air was thick with unspoken accusations and secrets about to surface. Slowly opening his briefcase, Mr. Reeves took out a thick envelope. That included legal instructions and secrets. Cleared his throat. "Walter Dawson, of sound mind and clear intention, declares this my last will and testament." The room was silent. Mr. Reeves read more. "My beloved wife, Helen Dawson, receives our family home and lifelong financial support." No change in Grandma's expression. She was aware. "I leave the newly built research facility at 482 Pine Ridge Lane, including all laboratory equipment, intellectual property rights to any ongoing projects I sponsor, and funds for development and staffing, to my granddaughter Elena Dawson." The room split. It started softly. Dad's sharp inhale, Mom's eye twitch. Vanessa broke the silence. "You must be kidding." Her angry voice shook. "You gave her the lab? The entire facility?" Mr. Reeves didn't flinch. "Finally, my granddaughters Elena and Vanessa Dawson will share the rest of my estate, assets, and investments." Loud silence followed. Vanessa stood up so fast her chair screeched on the wood floor. Her face reddened, her mouth curled in disbelief. "This is insane. No, I was promised everything. Just as you said." Her voice cracked as she turned on her parents. "Your word. You promised me everything if I visited him, played along, and was a good granddaughter." Frozen, I watched her. They made her lie and manipulate a dying man for money. She did it willingly. But Grandma continued. "Yes, more," she said coldly, pulling a folded letter from the drawer beside her. Passing it to Mr. Reeves, her hand shook. Walter also wanted to read. Mr. Reeves slowly unfolded the letter, avoiding tears on the brittle edges. Grandpa's handwriting was bold and firm, as if he had written every word clearly, even though the paper had yellowed. After clearing his throat, he read, "Elena, if this letter is read, I'm gone. Though that thought breaks my heart, I hope these words convey some of the love I couldn't show you enough. You were always different, but in a way that made the world better. While others sought noise, you sought truth. While they performed, you watched. You were my scientist kid, my pride, my legacy." Sharp breath caught my throat. I could feel my mother's gaze burning into me, but I didn't look. "I watched you grow up with questions no one seemed to want to answer. I saw you hold your notebook at 7 years old, recording how long rain took to fill a glass jar. I saw your joy fade when your mother ignored you or your father changed the subject. I watched helplessly as your brilliance made them uncomfortable because they didn't understand or try." Vanessa shifted in her seat. Mom crossed her arms. Dad looked away. Vanessa was always louder. Easy to praise. They parent more easily. So they poured everything into her. Attention, love, cash. Not entirely her fault for what happened. She played the role written for her. "Elena, you wrote your own script. More than you know. I admired that courage. I shed a tear. Grandma squeezed my hand gently. Your parents didn't come when you won your first regional science fair competition. They attended Vanessa's dress rehearsal. You carried the trophy to the porch, unsure of your pride or shame. You requested that we put it in the box under your bed instead of the shelf. You said, maybe if I don't show it, they won't treat me like someone else's kid. My heart broke that day. I felt my room shrink. Mom remained stiff. My father paled. Vanessa remained quiet, biting her bottom lip. Worth more than they gave. Recognition, warmth, and space to be yourself. I can't change the past, but I can shape your future. That's why I built your lab. So I changed the will. You're not wrong. You are their undeserved miracle. Slowly, Mr. Reeves folded the letter. Deafening silence followed. I remembered the trophies, the box under my bed, and sitting for hours rearranging them like puzzle pieces I didn't know how to display. I hid certificates in drawers. I remembered Vanessa saying, "Nobody likes a know-it-all," whenever I spoke to her friends. I remembered helping her with homework. She used to drop her books in front of me without asking, saying, "You're better at this." Once I told Vanessa, "That's cheating." "Elena, aid sister," Mom snapped from the hall. Family helps. It was never helpful. This was control. Patterns existed. Vanessa demanded my parents enable, and I complied because I thought being useful would make me loved. They sometimes talked when I was asleep. Mom whispered, "I don't know where she gets it." Dad said, "She's not like us," almost amused. "We may have brought the wrong child," they'd laugh. I never did. I looked down at my hands, older, steadier, and stronger than when I held a magnifying glass in the backyard to catch sunlight in a jar. Grandpa saw me. He always saw me. Now he'd made sure everyone had to. I was always quiet, the one who stayed behind while the family moved smoothly. Vanessa was the center of attention, and my parents orbited her like planets. I told myself I didn't need their attention. Not really. When carried for long enough, lies become heavy. As Vanessa danced on stage in glittering costumes, I held my breath in the auditorium's back row when Mom applauded. Such clapping never occurred for me. She probably didn't know my science fair date. On my 10th birthday, Grandma and Grandpa drove down from the ranch and gave me a microscope kit wrapped in newspaper with a twine bow. I was thrilled. Rolling her eyes, "Vanessa, of course she won a box of germs," she muttered. Mom laughed. "Elena is ours, always the oddball." Too excited to wait, I placed the microscope on the kitchen counter that night. I made slides of pond water, onion skin, flower petals, and anything else I could find. Mom's voice cut through the hallway like a blade as I leaned in to focus the lens. "Elena, clean up. Vanessa's pals are arriving. Your science messing up bothers me." She said it without looking at me. That was typical. Vanessa was populated. She had parties, celebrations, and smiling family photos. I had books. Quiet. I created a world from pages and formulas because the real one was too small. My parents treated my scholarships, awards, and summer research camp invitations like chores. "I must complete more paperwork. Can't you skip it? Our last camp is over. What about Vanessa's Miami trip? We can't be everywhere." They didn't realize those were my only supports. Strangers' recognition meant more than my blood silence. It wasn't just neglect. I sometimes felt like resentment, and my existence complicated their story about our family. I overheard my mom talking to another parent at school. "Elena, oh, she's our little genius," she said, smiling without her eyes. "Occasionally intense, but we're trying to normalize her." To avoid shaking, I locked the bathroom stall and gripped the toilet tank edge. Despite my efforts, when I got into the gifted program and was accepted early to university, they were afraid. not proud. You ready for that? You'll be far away. Elena, slow down. Being normal is fine. I wasn't typical. I never was. And Grandpa knew. He was the only one who didn't shrink me. I was crying behind the barn when he found me after Vanessa told me I'd never be pretty enough. Must have been 12. He didn't inquire. He handed me a pocket notebook and said, "Write what they don't understand. The world will eventually." That notebook accompanied me through high school, every failed experiment, lonely lunch, and invisible birthday. It anchored me, my defense. Now, sitting in this living room with that same family across from me, pretending I didn't deserve this and being selfish, I felt the full weight of those years settle around me like armor reforged. Their lifetime effort was to dim my light. Grandpa gave me a platform to shine without apology, so they had to watch. The silence after the letter was read was brief. Vanessa rose from her chair, furious and confused. Spitting the words cracked her voice. "This is absurd. Why should she get it? She wasn't there. After years absent, she enters and takes half of everything? The lab? The cash?" Looked at Mom and Dad. "You claimed ownership. Your word." My mother's face was blank, but her fingers twisted in her lap like she was trying to squeeze water from air. Vanessa said, "We understood," her voice rising with each word. "Your request was fulfilled. The role was mine. I visited him as instructed. I said everything right. I was the perfect granddaughter." Cracked voice. "You made me ask a dying man for favors." That sentence hung like smoke after a gunshot. Grandmother blinked. "Now I'm supposed to share?" Vanessa laughed bitterly. "With her." I slowly looked up to meet her eyes for the first time since entering the room. No more anger or fear, just clarity. I whispered, "You didn't visit him because you cared. They promised a reward, so you went." Vanessa froze. I said calmly, "You never spent hours with him talking about books, experiments, or his garden. You never sat by his hospital bed without permission. Despite lies locking me out, I was honest about loving him." "Enough." Standing suddenly, Mom snapped. "No time to lecture your sister, Elena. You don't understand our pressure." I repeated, almost laughing. "Hide the truth pressure of isolating me from my only supporters?" Dad stood with his shirt collar straightened, ready for a board meeting. "Elena, be reasonable," he said smoothly. "Think about your actions. Your education was fully funded. Science camps, competitions, international travel. How much did that cost us?" Room tilted. The breath caught, then settled. I said, low but sharp, "You didn't pay for that. Grandparents did. Every application fee, plane ticket, lab equipment, all of them. Not you." Dad started talking, but I stopped him. "From the start, you made me a low priority. You stated that clearly." "That's irrelevant," Mom snapped. "Having family means sacrifice. Vanessa needs this more than you. Sign over your share to honor your grandfather." Grandmother stood, slowly. Her voice was unaffected by her trembling hands. "Darn you." "What now?" My voice was unfamiliar in the quiet house as I asked. Grandma stared at me, possibly for the first time since I arrived. She said, "We rebuild now," as Walter would have wanted. That night, I slept in my old ranch room. The ceiling still had the glow-in-the-dark stars Grandpa helped me stick up there when I was 9. To ensure accuracy, I mapped actual constellations. While I consulted my astronomy book, he patiently followed my instructions on a chair. "Grandpa, move Orion's belt 2 inches left." "So serious," I called out. Although faint, those plastic stars shone in the darkness, like memories that last despite everything else. 6 years have passed since then. The front door slammed behind my parents and sisters 6 years ago. their angry footsteps echoing off the porch like a storm blowing out to sea. No word from them since. Their names, unknown numbers, recycled emails, and fake account friend requests appear on my phone, but I delete them without opening. Their apologies are unnecessary when they're born of absence. They decided, as did I. My lab, Grandpa's, went from private research to something important. We didn't just honor Walter Dawson by naming it the Innovation Center, honored his faith. Sustainable agriculture, micro irrigation, adaptive crop genetics, and eco-friendly pest management are our specialties. Former science fair items now go to struggling farms across the state. I received a National Innovation and Climate Resilience grant in San Francisco last month. On stage, my navy blue suit and mother's silence like armor. The crowd applauded, but the spotlight didn't blind me. I investigated and didn't hesitate. Under the foundation's logo, a photo of Walter Dawson smiling in a sunflower field was displayed beside the stage. The caption said, "For dreamers who invest in the overlooked." I think you saw it somewhere. Sometimes it was hard. Some nights I doubted myself, my abilities, and whether I could build something from scratch without falling apart. There were failed experiments, rejected grant applications, and times when Grandpa's expectations were too much. But whenever I faltered, I remembered his advice. Write what they don't understand. The world will, eventually. Slowly, the center expanded. First, it was just me and two graduate students in a converted barn with cutting-edge equipment that looked out of place among the wooden beams. We have 27 researchers, 4 departments, 3 university partnerships, and field sites in 12 Texas counties. Tara and Micah, my university best friends, lead center departments. We laugh often. We still botch experiments. Burn popcorn in the break room microwave. We also change lives. Because someone believed we could, not because we're smarter. We held our first youth science camp last spring. 15-year-old kids with that same look I had, hungry for knowledge and desperate to be seen. One girl, barely 13, with thick glasses and a quiet voice, showed me her notebook of native bee observations from her hometown. Her calculations were rough but intuitive, and her questions were brilliantly simple. She looked so surprised when I told her this that I had to turn away to hide my tears. She said, "You read it," as if that was the greatest thing I could have done. I realized then that Grandpa's legacy was about breaking cycles and seeing potential where others saw inconvenience, not just research or facilities. Our youth program now serves over 150 students annually. We call it the Little Scientist Initiative, which always makes me smile. Each participant receives a leather-bound notebook like Grandpa gave me behind that barn years ago. We printed his words in "The Things They Don't Understand" on the first page. The world will, eventually. Some of our first participants are studying environmental science and sustainable agriculture in college with full scholarships. The center has grown beyond my expectations. 5 modern labs, 3 greenhouses, and over 60 acres of experimental growing fields have grown from a small research facility. We share our innovations with farmers suffering the most from climate change through partnerships with Brazilian and Kenyan research organizations. Our drought-resistant corn variant fed 40,000 people in 3 season crop failure areas last year. I realized that my methodical thinking, obsession with details, and preference for quiet observation over performative confidence, the very qualities my family tried to suppress, made this work possible. I suppose that's poetic justice. 3 years after the will reading, Vanessa's lawyer wrote to me. She wanted to visit the center. I thought it was another attempt to overthrow the will, but she was so unfamiliar. The polished appearance, practiced smile, and rehearsed charm were gone. Her uncertainty made her seem smaller and more genuine. "I don't expect forgiveness," she said awkwardly in the main lobby, staring at Grandpa's portrait above the reception desk. "I wanted to see his creation for you. With it, you built." My tour included the labs, greenhouses, and fields where we tested new irrigation systems. She asked thoughtful, interested questions. She stopped at the community garden where local families grow food using our methods. "He always knew you," she whispered, "although I didn't, although I pretended not to. We rarely talk, Vanessa and I. Casual reconciliation is impossible due to deep damage. However, she volunteers at our youth science camp twice a year. She teaches kids how to present complex ideas to non-scientists. A small bridge, but something neither of us thought possible. My parents haven't offered. They moved to Florida after Dad's early retirement from the investment firm, last I heard. Mom is sometimes mentioned in social media or local newspapers for charity galas. Business journals sometimes quote Dad on market trends. They live parallel to me, never crossing the border. Grandma lived at the ranch until last year when arthritis made stairs difficult. In town, she has an apartment connected to my house so I can check on her daily, but still give her independence. We have coffee most mornings. She tells me about Grandpa I never knew, how they met at a county fair when she knocked over his prize-winning tomato display, how he proposed with a ring tied to a sapling he planted in her parents' yard, and how he spent 30 years tending that tree until it bore. Sometimes I wonder if Vanessa remembered that day, if Mom still hosts dinner parties and professes to have 2 daughters with a smile. I wonder if Dad still calls himself principled. Most days, I don't wonder. The upcoming research projects dominate my thoughts. The drought-resistant wheat variety performing well in our trials. We're perfecting a solar-powered irrigation system for small farmers. We soil remediation method can restore depleted farmland in one growing season. We received a $25 million National Science Foundation grant to study climate-adaptive agriculture. I wanted to call Grandpa and hear his pride when I told him about our center's largest grant. Instead, I walked behind the old ranch house, sat on his decades-old wooden bench, and watched the sunset turn the sky amber and gold. Sometimes I talked to him there about our progress, small wins, and frustrating setbacks. Grandma joined me on the bench last night. She moves slower at 87, but her mind is sharp. After a while of quiet, she handed me a small velvet pouch from her cardigan pocket. She said she should have given you this years ago, but it never felt right. Grandpa's pocket watch, which he wore all his adult life, was inside. After decades of use, the silver case with WD on the back engraving nearly faded. I was surprised to find a tiny photo cut to fit inside the lid. My first science fair photo showed me beaming next to my honeybee communication display. Grandma simply said, "He carried you every day." The morning sun hits the watch just right on my desk, casting little circles of light across my research notes. It reminds me that legacy is the quiet certainty that someone believed in you enough to invest in your potential, not dollars or accolades. Our latest research project focuses on something Grandpa always talked about: helping small family farms survive in a corporatized agricultural landscape. Our cooperative model lets independent farmers share resources, knowledge, and market access without sacrificing autonomy. Since the pilot program began in 3 counties last year, families on the verge of selling their land have found new ways to survive. When I walk through those farms